Hi, this is Santiago Zapata, and today we're working on Muyscamuy, or Muyscamuy, I guess that's the correct way to pronounce it, probably, our entry for the Cultural Heritage Game Jam. And today we're going to be working on something important, very important, and that is the onboarding, or how we make the players understand what the game is about. And I believe this is especially important for a game jam entry because I don't know how many submissions this one's going to have, but normally there's a lot of submissions, and the jurors have too little time to really understand what the game's about. So it's important to give him a little hand on that. But also overall, I mean, nowadays it's very hard to grab the attention of the players, and if they feel frustrated and if they don't know what the game's about, then they're just not going to play it. So it's important to have a good onboarding, especially in this kind of games, because this game is not very easy to, or very you cannot naturally understand it because there's some rules, there's some stuff going on, and the player can feel overwhelmed by it. So yeah, so let's see what's the current status of the game. We have evolved a little bit from the last coding session. Uh, these are not still the definitive graphics, still a lot of placeholders, but we advance and remove more stuff every time. Um, there's also events now, random events happening that can you gotta choose. Well, not in this case. This is like a single uh, choice event, so not a lot to do. But um, some others you can choose. But overall, it's a farming simulation game. We got weather too, and I'm still integrating a lot of stuff. But the idea is that the players must understand, be able to understand what's going on there, because else they're not going to play it. So the first thing we're going to do is design that onboarding. Um, so what are the goals? Um, that's like one of the things we gotta decide. What are the goals for that onboarding, and what are the steps, and what's going to trigger each step? Because nowadays it's very hard to introduce a training or tutorial mode. Players don't expect that. Players expect to learn how to play the game by playing the game, I guess. Uh, so it's gotta be natural, but also you gotta make it so that it doesn't feel um, like for like preventing the players from playing, right? Like something on the way. It should not get on the way of the players. So, anyways, the other thing we need to do. So the first thing is like, what are we going to tell the players? The other thing is how. What's going to be the format for that? I'm still deciding on it, but it's probably going to be something like this, something like a conversation with a character, and the instructions or the whatever is going to be here. Another important thing is that it's gonna be like attached to the narrative of the game, so that this feels more natural. Anyways, let's go with that. So first we need some introduction, right? Context, what the game is about, final goals. Another thing that we need to do is teach the player how the farming system works. Um, because that's like the more fundamental part of the game, right? The farming aspects. Um, then what else do we have? We got the um, actual buildings, right? How to make buildings, which involves like gathering wood um, and all that. Somewhere we probably should trigger some interactions when there's things going on like people starving, right? Like if people is dying in your settlement, then you gotta tell the player like you shouldn't let this happen. Um, that will reinforce some of the mechanics of the game. And actually, how to make buildings. There's two kinds of buildings right now. There's the temple and there's the forge foundry where the gold is worked. Um, so probably how to make a building should be like a secondary aspect of how to use some of these temples. So for example, I think maybe what we can have is uh, when or how to interact with the gods, I think, and this could be triggered by storm. Then we can also let the player know what are the effects of the storm. Something like a great storm has unleashed over our farmland. Some crops will be damaged. Um, if this continues for many days, it will be our doom. Uh, we can, I mean, this text, maybe there's going to be a lot of revisions. I'm not going to do a big effort coming up with the perfect text here. Just need some indication and some context, and then we can like define the definitive text that makes more sense and is more beautiful and all that. But I'm going to be raw here. We can build a temple and make offers to um, to improve the weather. Whatever. To build a temple, we need wood. Place some workers in the forest until we have gathered, I don't know, 100 wood. And here is where not everything has to be text, right? It should be once the player does this, um, it should be evident what is going to happen, right? How much wood is going to be gathered and all that. We are not we don't have to tell all that here. So that's one thing. Triggered by the first storm, but let's only do this after we have farms. When we have farms, yes, that's important, right? Um, Now, how to make buildings? So this is triggered by I'm going to name this interactions. ID for this is going to be first storm. So how to make buildings triggered by first storm happened and collected, I don't know, 100 wood. Probably more is needed. We're going to take those numbers afterwards as well. And there's going to be something like this. Now we have enough wood to build the temple. Um, and well, I still gotta improve the building interface right now. So I'm going to put here what is going to be like the way that is going to work. Right now it's a bit different, but we are going to improve it. So now we got enough wood to build the temple. Uh, Place some workers or some builders in a blank in a patch of land near the community center and click on the build temple button. And here we're going to add some additional help. The the construct the builders are going to consume some wood every day, working towards the construction of the temple. If you run out of wood, you'll have to gather more. This is probably obvious. I know. We'll see how that feels inside the game. What else? All right. So praying, how to pray. Triggered by first temple built. Great. We have built our first temple. Well, actually, you can build many temples in the game, but it only makes sense to create one. We have built a temple in our community. From there, you can make offers to the gods, increase our favor with them, or make rituals to improve the weather or have a better harvest. Click on the rituals button. Uh, Click on the rituals buttons, and no, I don't think that this is something that we need to tell them to do. That should be also self guiding. So we build a temple. From there, you can make offers to the gods to increase them. That should be enough. All right. What else? So far we need to teach them. Well, the introduction is going to be something like um, I think there's this is where the main plot is going to connect more. So we need to tell something like we are preparing for a big celebration. So we need to craft some offerings for the celebration while we survive. Of course, this is going to be improved later, hopefully, because that's pretty raw. Um, and then let's connect this with the farming part. Um, First thing we need to do is create an irrigation system next to the river where we can plant, make our maize farms. Click on the patches of land near the river to assign workers to create the irrigation, and then click on the next day button to advance a day. So the idea here is that this is not going to be like a very strong guided onboarding. I mean, the player can decide how many irrigations he's going to create. Not we are not like going to force them into creating a single one or something like that. That's the idea. Okay. Now another one is triggered when first irrigation is completed. Great. Now we can plant the seeds of maize. You can uh, just keep the same workers uh, in the field or assign new ones. Should be enough. Another one is going to happen when first seeding, sowing, I forgot the name, is completed. That is uh, when they finish planting the seeds. We now have planted the seeds of maize, and the Mother Earth is going to make them grow. Um, we don't have, you can, well, actually, I'm going to automatically unassign the workers from the field when this happens. So let's not put that there. We don't need to have people in the field until the harvest is ready. Um, Rain, and so here is where we're going to connect with this. Um, so in the temple, you can do two different things. You can bless the harvest so that when the harvest time comes, you have more food available on it. And you can also stop bad weather, or hope or ask for a better weather. I'm not sure how to connect that here. Um, uh, we don't need to have people in the field until the harvest is ready. However, we should ask the gods for a good harvest. Maybe I can connect the building part here instead of the storm. So yeah, I'm going to do that. I don't know, let's keep both for now and see how that feels. So we can build a temple and make offers. To do this, we should build a temple and make offers. To build a temple, we need wood. Place some workers in the forest. Okay. Let's leave both. I mean, there's like two different paths for this to happen. So let's see which one triggers first. Um, all right. Um, Now we got enough wood to build a temple. Let's try something here. Let's unchain this. And yes, let's make it like you can arrive to this step uh, from any of these two previous paths. And actually, you could even do this independently without having to hit any of the other things. Um, all right. What other systems? Okay, so the other system is the foundry or forge system, and this is related to the interesting. So I'm not sure what we should guide the player to build first. Should we prompt them to build a temple, or should we prompt them to build a forge? Because the forge is like ultimately what you need to win the game is create one of each kind of tunho, which are like these uh, sacred sculptures that the Muisca had. Um, so I'm not sure, but I'm going to work backwards here. Um, First, forge build. We're going to have another trigger here. We now have a forge. Uh, Here we can build the craft forge, the tunjos for the celebration. That should be enough because once the player goes into the building, he's going to self-guide and do that. But yeah, we got enough wood to build a temple or a forge. Place some build there, the build button, building, and try to make this like a general But yeah, I don't need some kind of prompt to, to tell the players to build a forge. Um, hmm. And we also need another trigger for the harvest. So I'm going to continue here with the line of the harvest. Trigger when first harvest is available. Bless the gods. We can now harvest our fields. Assign some workers to the harvestable field to gather food. And here's something special. So this is a community event. So you can assign a lot of people to it without any penalty. I will change that later. But the point here is that for some activities, you are limited to the amount of people that you can assign to be productive because having too many people working on the same thing can be counterproductive. So yeah, but for the harvest, that's not the case. Um, Another trigger is when first harvest is finished, and we are going to say something here. These fields have yield their produce. We can now decide if we are going to sow them. Is that the correct word? I don't know. Sow them again or let them rest. Um, all right. Right, people starving triggered. First, Miska starved. And it's going to be something like one of our people has died of hunger. Uh, if you if we don't have more food, all right, there's also trading. If we don't have more food, our community will be doomed. And then some hints here like you can get more food by trading in the community center or farming, I guess, but that should be something obvious. So if we don't have uh, farms ready to harvest, we can get more food by trading in the community center. Um, right. Trading, actually, I don't know if it's going to be some onboarding required because it's pretty straightforward. We'll see in a bit. What are we missing? So we're still missing the connection to ask the player to create a forge. And what we can do is trigger that happens probably, let's put that like some days after the first harvest, I guess. Um, yes, so something like that. So let's try with that. So trigger uh, 3 days after the first harvest. Um, we should get started on building the tunjos for the celebration. 3 days after the first harvest if player has no forge. We should get started on building the tunjos for the celebration. Um, and then we copy some of the instructions that we had here for the temple, like here. We can build a forge. We need to build a forge to work on them. To build a forge, we need wood. Place some workers in the forest until we have gathered 100 wood, and that should connect with the other one, which is this one. Yes, Okay. I believe, let's see if I missed anything. I don't think I did. Farming, woods, uh, the favor with the gods. Yeah, this is something that is missing. Let's put this here. How to make buildings. Yeah. Okay, here. This is going to be a bit long, but I'm going to put it just here. If we don't make offers to the gods and keep our favor up, but weather who could destroy our crops. Really, we should build a temple and make offers. Yeah, this is these texts are super bland, but they're going to be improved afterward. So there you are. That's the design or an initial design. Now we need to actually add support for this in the game. So we already have this talk panel, which is very simple. We need some kind of class that can trigger like a full sequence of these things and can also check the triggers somehow. So we got something similar here for the where was it? For the events, right? And we're going to have something similar. So I'm going to copy this. We're going to create a new file called tips.cs. And it's going to be a static class. And we are going to define a class called tips. So every tip, each tip has a list of, has a trigger. Still don't know how to represent it, but let's put a string for the moment. And a list of texts. And then we can have something here like a private tip array tips list. It's going to be a new tip array, and we're going to have a new tip, and this tip is going to have this, for instance. Oh crap! These lines. One line, two lines, three lines, and we gotta escape these quote marks here. And that one doesn't have a trigger, so that's like the simplest possible one. So we're going to have only that one for now, and we're going to add something like a list of pending tips. And we're going to actually, this is gotta be static because we're in a static class. And we're going to add a static initializer as well. And this is going to go through all the tips for each tip in tips list. We're going to add it to depending tips. And we're going to have another method called tips. And that one is going to go through all the pending tips for each tip in pending tips. It's going to check if tip.triggers, then we show it. And the way we show it is we go to the model dot show tip, right? And we break here because we only want to show one. And we're going to create this triggers function or method, sorry, here. And for now, it's just going to return true. Now we need to add this show tip method to the model. Model.cs public static void show tip, and it receives a tip. And for now, we're just going to show it here, debug.log tip dot texts in the zero position. Tip is still not known because we haven't compiled this class. So we go to Unity and let it compile. Stop this. And this is void. This tips is static tips. What else? Tip we need to use system.collections.generic lines. Tip doesn't contain texts. Sorry, text is the correct name of the attribute. And it's compiling. There are errors here, no errors here. And we're going to call check tips. So we do this, we should do this, let me think, at least on every new day. So we go to model.cs and we got the next day function. And we're going to put that call to check tips here. That's on tips. But we also need to do it on day one. So let's do it just here and let's see how everything works. So we disable. Let's keep this design. Yeah, close everything. And let's hit the play button. Let's drink some coffee. And we go to the console and click on next day. And here it is. So it triggered. We need to connect it with the actual UI. So we're going to do that. So instead in the model, instead of just doing this, we are going to call model hook dot dock panel dot open the tip. It should be called tip panel probably. We're going to go to talk panel. So here's the thing. Right now, talk panel is a normal alert panel. We're going to create a actual script for it. It's going to be based on the alert panel because it's similar, but I don't see it. Where is it? Okay, I need to move some stuff around here. Still here. New file is called tip panel.cs. We're going to copy alert panels content. It's pretty short, but it's called tip panel. And it's got a tip. We are going to need some index, and it opens with that tip. We assign it. We set the game object active. That's the first thing, and we call next tip. This is going to be a function here, public as well, because it's going to be called by the button as well. Public void next tip, and let me see something here. Next tip is going to do this. 1 second, I'm just sharing this. I always forget to share my streaming. That is why I will never be a famous streamer or anything like that. But I just hope this is useful for someone. It's slow. Gonna put that here on the global game jam. thing. Where is it? General. All right. So next step is actually going to do this. I'm going to set the text for this alert message. So if current index is less than tip.texts dot length, yeah, it's an array. See, if that's the case, then we just set it here, and we increase the current index so it starts with 0. With the tip.text in that position. In the current index position, and we increase the current index position. And if not, then it's done. So we close it. And actually, that's going to be the only way to close it. So we put this thing as private. Yeah, that should be it. So the last thing we need to do is rewire this panel. So we go back to Unity, and in here in the talk panel, we're going to change the script for it to be tip panel. We're going to remove this component, and we're going to put it so that this text field is the actual text. And the button, we need to rewire it as well so that it calls next tip, and we're going to change the label so that it says next. Probably we should also make it so that the character is something that you can set, but not for now, not initially. So let's see how that works. Oh, we forgot to assign the talk panel here. Yeah. All right. Let's see how that works. So next day, and it worked. We are preparing for a big celebration, so we need to craft some offerings for the celebration while we survive. Next. Something, it's not working well. I hope it's not an infinite loop, but it may well be. There are no errors, and the button, I'm not sure if it's being responsive or not. No, there's no infinite loop because I can still switch to the scene, but it's not going to the next day, to the next tip. So there's something wrong there. Talk panel, let's see how it's wired in the event here. Let's call it next tip. Current index is less than this. Yeah, it's 1. It's not working as expected. So we're going to debug. We cannot debug in Visual Studio Code right now because of this setup. So we need to go to the big Visual Studio tip panel.cs. So we open Visual Studio. We're going to, I don't like it a lot, but that's how I currently got this setup here on this computer. We associate to Unity, and we put a breakpoint here. And probably, let's see if it's been called. It did not stop there. No. So we are going to rerun here and see what happens the first time. So here we are. Current index is 0. And this is a function. What is this? 3. No, that's fine. 3. Okay. So we set the first one and we increase it to 1. Okay. And that happened from open. Okay. And then the button is not being responsive. Why? Here's the button. It's calling tip panel.nextTip. but it's not working. Okay, so the problem is that this text is blocking the raycast. That was it. That was it. Okay. We no longer need you. So see you. Microsoft Visual Studio. Bye bye. And we run again. And we click on next day, and it's working now. First thing we need to do is create an irrigation system. Click on the patches of land near the river to assign workers. To assign workers. To create the irrigation and then click on next day button to advance a day. Another thing that is very useful for this onboarding is leaving like a persistent message somewhere, and maybe it can be the last one or it can be something specific. So let's put a persistent message attribute here, and we set it here. We just copy it. And the idea is that when we are closing this, if the tip has a persistent message, then we set the UI to keep it. So we again use the model class, and we use the set persistent message with this, and we create that thing public static void set persistent message with what message. And what we do here is we're going to put that as part of the HUD. So we should already have a HUD thing here in the model hook. If not, we add it model hook dot HUD, no HUD, okay, dot set persistent message thing. So this class works like as a front proxy, I guess, to other stuff. So we don't have a HUD here, which is weird. I believe that's why the reason for that is that there's no HUD class. There's a prefab called HUD, but that prefab doesn't have like a base. Oh, so it's a stats panel. Let's reuse that. So stats panel is actually the HUD, and that is the one that is going to have the persistent message setup stats panel. And we're going to have a thing here, persistent message label. And that's the one that we're going to set the text to. Okay, that should be enough. Set persistent. Persistent? Persistent? I don't know. Is it persistent or persistent? I don't know. Whatever. That should be enough. So do we have any problems? No, it doesn't look like it. And then we need to configure that here, hook that here. So in the HUD, let's create another one similar to this. This is the main mission text, and this is the persistent persistent message. And we're going to put that here. All right, should do it. Return here. There's compiler errors, persistent somewhere. There's a persistent somewhere. So that's on the tip panel class. That's where we are. Persistent. Okay, let's disable. Go back to Unity. Play. Next day. Alright, and there it is. A bit not very good looking because we did not locate it properly. So go back to the stats panel or the HUD, and then move the persistent message a little bit under this one. It's probably going to need be bigger, and we are also going to best fit it, but max 614 in case we got like a very long message there. Play again. Next day. Oh, well, we need to a better. So something else happened here, and it's that an event was triggered. Probably we need to make sure that when the onboarding is triggered, no event is triggered. That the kind of thing that you find on when you're testing this. And yeah, that's pretty simple. Let's just put an else here. Probably the tips, the onboarding should have precedence over the events. So let's do something here. Check tips. We're going to change this to Boolean. And if thing was shown, then we return true. Else we return false. And let's change this here. If no tip was shown, then we go with the event, the possible event logic. Yeah. Okay. And let's retry this. Let's fix the HUD so that this doesn't have any initial value. We are click on the patches of land near the river to assign workers to create irrigation, and then click on the next day button to advance a day. And all right, so now we gotta work on the triggers. So right now we are returning true always to trigger the tip. First off, I believe we need a way for the trigger to only be triggered once. That's like a basic control. But that's easy because we have the pending tips here. And what we're going to do here is, I believe we can do it here, yeah. Let's pending tips dot remove this tip. I don't think there's a concurrent modification problem in C#, but we'll confirm that in a little bit. So that's going to make it so that it's only shown once, if everything goes well. Yes, okay, great. That's one thing. The other thing we need to do is change this. So this one has no trigger, so if there's no trigger condition, actually confusion condition, then we just trigger it. But if there's one, then we gotta switch on it. And let's check the condition that we have on the design. So we got these kind of conditions. First irrigation is completed. First sowing is completed. First harvest is available. First harvest is finished. So here's one thing. These are like game events actually, and it does look like first storm is triggered. So yeah, I think we gotta change a little bit on our model here so that it's not like it's not a model where we check based on a point of the game. For example, here we were planning to have this happen on the next day, and that's actually an event. But there are more events in the game. I believe the best way to model this would be to have a model system notifying things happening in the game, and then have the tips module react to that. We got 10 minutes left on this session. So let's advance a little bit on that. We're probably not going to make it through. but let's try it. So yeah, it's going to change a little bit because, and let's put the first one there. Let's put the first irrigation is completed. So this one, it would be something like a new tip here. With this, I believe it's got a single text, but still an array. Right, now we can plant it, okay. We can add a persistent message for this as well. Continue working on the field, on the irrigation until you finish sowing. I think that verb is wrong, but I'll fix it afterwards. And here's the thing, so it would have something like a trigger condition that is first. First what? First irrigation completed. But what I believe what we're going to do here is irrigation completed, because it's actually only called once. So we don't need to specify that it's only going to be happening the first time that it's completed. And what we need to do here is that we actually switch here the trigger condition, something like switch tip dot trigger condition. And if it is irrigation completed, then we add that somewhere to listen to that. Something like model dot listen to irrigation completed. I'm just making stuff here on the tip that trigger. It will be something like tips dot. So right now the way that we are triggering these things is with this. No, not this. Here. Going to dependent tips. Model dot shout tip. Model dot shout tip. And that should only happen once. So what happened here? Oh, the break. Ah. Well, yeah, we can make this model as simple as we can, as we want. Let's try to keep it like this, all right? So we're going to need a function delegate. I always forget how to make this. We are also gonna need the model to emit that irrigation completed event. And that happens here in the next day trigger. So it has some area that next day. Oh, right. So it happens inside the area next day. If it's a farm, we need a transition to the irrigation building being completed, and that happens here. All right. So it's actually more of a building completed event, and then the type of building that was completed. But it will be something like model that emit. I'm going to be a bit crappy here. Building that and concat completed, but we're going to need the uppercase there. All right, something like that. Emit. And inside the model, we'll have the public static void emit event and then string event type. And before we forget, let's update this to uppercase I. And we also need the listen to function. And it receives a delegate, event delegate. Let's put it like this for now. Delegate. I forgot how public delegate. I always forget how to do this. Delegate event delegate. Yeah, I think so. Event delegate. I always forget how to do this, but there's no shame on doing a quick lookup. So let's do that. C# delegates. Delegates is a type that refers to method with the parameter list. Public delegate. Okay. Public delegate void execute event, and we don't need any parameter. And that should be it. Oh, this is a keyword. Okay. Then we're going to need a map or a dictionary we're going to have a single listener for each kind of event for now. So at static listeners for that event type is going to be the delegate. And then when we meet, what we do is if there's a listener for that, then if there's no listener for that, we don't do anything. But if there is one, then we call the delegate. That should work, hopefully. Building completed, irrigation completed, and we are doing it so that in the tips, irrigation completed is going to call this. The problem is when we are going to have multiple tips listening to the same event, but maybe we will not need that, and that's going to allow us to keep this system simple. Another thing that we're going to do is that these models, these listeners are only going to listen once. So we're going to remove the key. No longer going to be a listener for that. And if all goes well, then we're going to see the irrigation completed tip. We also need some logic here to prevent events from happening when a tip is displayed, because we will not have that direct control that we had on next day function. Let's go. Well, it ran. Let's put some people here. 3, 2, 1, 0, and it did not work. Did not work. Are there any errors? No errors. So yeah, something happened there. We're going to see in the area was this emitted. So we put some logs here because I don't want to open Visual Studio. Event emitted event type. Executing listener, and also listen to event type. We run here. That should happen. That adding the listener should happen on the initialization of the thing, and it did not happen. It didn't happen. There's a message here, but I don't see it. Info. Oh, it's filtered. All right, sorry. Okay, listen to irrigation completed. Okay, so the listening is happening. 1, 2, 3. The irrigation was completed, but oh, okay. Oh, so it's actually working, but irrigation completed. So we're listening to the wrong thing. Oh, there's something weird there. Like that irrigation completed event is being fired when the farm is completed, not when the irrigation is completed. Here is where it was supposed to be called. Okay, and I believe the reason for that is that right, this should happen after we have set the next building. That was it. All right. Now it should work, so we put some people to work here. And when the irrigation is completed, it did not really work. Oh, no, they are sewing. Now it never fired. Now it never fired because I don't know why. Building is the next building. Huh. No, actually I believe it was correct here. When the irrigation is completed, maybe, okay. So here, I don't think this is actually doing anything here because irrigations I don't believe are buildings. This is probably misleading. Um, Not to leave that here, but also here, it's not really a building, but it's like a building, something like this. Okay. There it is. Great, now we can plant the seeds of maize. You can just keep the same workers in the field or assign new ones. And again, continue working on the irrigation until you finish sowing. But we do need to block the events from happening when a tip was displayed. And we can no longer do that here on the model class this way. That may be like one thing if so. What we're going to do is call tips.checkTips, but also if no tip was shown, it not very clean, but when should we reset this? So since events happen every day, model. Okay, so we're going to do something different. If this has events blocked, then we don't do it and we unblock this. And what we do is when a tip is displayed, we block events until the next day. Let's see how that works. Events blocked, events blocked. Where are the control variables? Here. And we no longer need this to return a boolean. Let's see how that works. Save all and run. Of course, it's hard to know in the first time you run it because the events are pretty random, but we'll see. 3, 2, 1, and there it goes. And let's do like a 2 or 3 more runs to see. Seems to be working fine. Actually, I believe the event should be happening only after you have finished the onboarding. There you are. Seems to work fine. The other thing we need to do is call that check tips on initialization of the game, and that's going to be a single call somewhere. Probably just after this static initializer, but maybe too early for the scene to be ready. Let's do that in the model hook. There's gotta be a start function awake. Is there start here? No. Update UI. Let's do it here. For that first tip to be triggered. Okay. Great. Okay. So, oh, but no events happened anytime. Yeah, we we did something bad. Yes, of course, because we are never resetting that variable events blocked. That should happen here. Okay. Again, let's test. Event, tip without event, and events. Yeah, we need to do more testing, of course. Okay, looks good. So yeah, we are over the 1 hour mark now. I'm going to commit this, and the next step will be like continuing implementing this design in the game, which involves firing the events that we define here as triggers and testing that everything works and then seeing how it feels. But yeah, just wanted to share a little bit of how this onboarding process is, or the way I do it, and why it's important, and one way to implement it on Unity. So we'll continue working on this game. The deadline is for Monday. It's shaping up great, and we're going to be integrating the audio from Quiet Gecko and some great new visuals from David, and some content hopefully from Esteban, the new team member that we are working with. So hopefully it ends up great, and of course with the continuous support from Manuel to make sure that the content that we're doing is accurate, I guess. So thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.